Welcome to Pawprints of Valor. Let's begin the story. The sunlight filtered through the stained glass windows of St. Helena Church, painting the marble floor with soft ribbons of gold and blue. It was a peaceful Sunday morning, so peaceful that even the dust floating in the air seemed to drift in quiet prayer. The choir's voices rose gently, blending with the low hum of the organ. Every heartbeat in the sanctuary moved in one slow, unified rhythm. And then, that rhythm shattered. Bolt, Alex Carter's retired K9 partner, let out a deep, vibrating growl that cut through the hymn like a blade. His muscles tensed, his ears pinned forward, his leash trembled violently in Alex's hands. Before Alex could react, Bolt lunged, a blur of fur, force, and instinct. Gasps erupted across the pews. A woman screamed. The choir faltered mid-note. Bolt charged straight down the center aisle, toward the pulpit, toward the man dressed in emerald vestments, toward Father Patrick Doyle. The priest froze. One hand clutched the lectern, the other pressed suddenly to his chest. His face drained of color. Bolt circled behind him, barking with a frantic urgency Alex hadn't heard since their years on the force. That was when something slipped from the folds of Father Patrick's robe. A small, metallic object that clattered across the stone floor. For a moment, nobody breathed. And in that fragile silence, one truth became clear. Bolt wasn't attacking the priest. He was exposing something far worse. Long before that Sunday morning unraveled into chaos, Alex Carter believed he had finally found peace. After 12 years as a K9 handler, 12 years of raids, night shifts, explosions, and the constant weight of danger, he had stepped away from the badge and toward something gentler. A security position at a local middle school. Quiet evenings, early mornings, predictable days. And Bolt, his partner, his protector, his shadow, remained by his side. Bolt was aging now. His black and tan coat had streaks of silver, like twilight woven into fur. His movements were slower, his breaths heavier, but his eyes, those sharp, amber eyes, still shimmered with instinct, with memory, with unwavering loyalty. Every weekend, Alex brought Bolt to St. Helena Church. Not just for routine, not just for comfort, but because it was the only place where Alex felt the noise of his old life fade. St. Helena was a small stone church tucked between maple trees, the kind of place where everyone greeted each other by name. Bells chimed softly before each service. Incense drifted like thin, silver smoke. And at the heart of it all stood Father Patrick Doyle, a gentle, soft-spoken priest, known for his warm smile and sermons that felt more like conversations than proclamations. People trusted him. Children ran to him. Elders confided in him. Even Bolt in the early months would sit at Father Patrick's feet during the blessing of Pets Festival. But lately, something had shifted. Alex first noticed it 3 weeks before the incident. Bolt, usually calm inside the church, would rise to his feet whenever Father Patrick walked by. Not aggressively, just alert, watching, following the priest with a gaze that felt too focused, too intense to ignore. At first, Alex brushed it off. Dogs remember scents. Dogs respond to subtle cues. Maybe Father Patrick had visited someone who owned another dog, or walked through a place that held memories for Bolt. Yet, as days passed, the unease grew. During morning visits, Bolt would sit at the threshold of the sanctuary, but refused to step inside until Alex coaxed him gently. During evening prayer, Bolt's nose would twitch, his ears tilt, as if catching something the human senses missed. Father Patrick, of course, noticed. "Bolt seems restless these days," he said one afternoon, offering the dog a kind smile. "He must sense how chaotic life feels lately." Alex chuckled politely, but the words lingered like a soft echo. Chaotic? Father Patrick never spoke like that. And there was something else, something Alex wouldn't fully process, until later. A slight tremor in the priest's hands, a heaviness in his eyes. A hollow exhaustion hidden behind every carefully measured smile. If Alex, a man trained to read danger, had trusted his instincts, maybe he would have asked more questions. But peace felt good, and he wanted to believe they were safe, until the morning Bolt broke formation. Until instinct, raw, urgent, undeniable, pulled the truth into the light. The following Sunday arrived wrapped in quiet winter light. Frost clung to the church steps, sparkling beneath the early sun as Alex and Bolt made their way inside. Families gathered in soft murmurs, shaking off the cold, stamping snow from their boots, their laughter echoing faintly beneath the high stone arches. Bolt walked beside Alex, slow but steady, until they crossed the threshold. Then something changed. His body stiffened as if an invisible current had run through him. His ears pricked sharply forward. His chest expanded with a deep inhale, like he was sampling the air for a specific scent, hidden beneath incense and candle wax. Alex paused, frowning. "Easy, boy," he whispered. But Bolt didn't move. His amber eyes were locked on the far end of the sanctuary, on Father Patrick, adjusting the green stole draped over his shoulders near the altar. A low vibration rolled through Bolt's throat. Not a growl, not a warning. More like confusion mixed with instinct. As though something about that moment scraped against an old fragment of memory. Alex kneeled beside him, running a calming hand over Bolt's back. The dog trembled, not with fear, but with focus, hyper-awareness, the same stillness he used to show seconds before detecting explosives. It sent a strange chill through Alex. Father Patrick turned then, noticing them. He raised a gentle hand to wave, his smile warm as always. But even from across the room, Alex caught a subtle falter, a brief tightening around the priest's jaw, a small tremor in his fingers before he tucked them discreetly into his sleeves. Bolt noticed too. His breath hitched, his tail lowered. He stared at the priest the way he once stared at closed doors, hiding dangerous things. People around them chuckled lightly. "Oh, looks like Bolt wants to serve again," a woman teased. "He remembers the uniform," another added. Alex forced a smile, but worry tugged at him. As the Mass began, Bolt refused to lie down beside the pew. Instead, he sat upright, gaze fixed on Father Patrick like a silent sentinel. Whenever the priest moved, lifting the chalice, stepping down the altar, offering blessings, Bolt's head tracked him with unwavering precision. Then came the moment that tightened Alex's chest. During the procession of gifts, Father Patrick walked past their pew. The air shifted. Bolt suddenly leaned back, nostrils flaring, as if detecting something sharp beneath the incense, something chemical, metallic, foreign. A faint, almost sour scent tickled Alex's nose too, but so lightly he wondered if he imagined it. Bolt didn't imagine anything. He rose to his feet. His tail stiffened, his breathing deepened. His pupils narrowed into two burning points of focus on the priest's robe, specifically, the pocket sewn discreetly into its side. Father Patrick paused mid-step, sensing the dog's stare. Their eyes met, man and animal, silence stretching like a held breath. The priest swallowed hard. Then he offered a trembling smile and continued walking. No one else noticed, only Alex and Bolt. And though neither of them could name it yet, something dark had already begun to shimmer beneath the surface of that quiet sanctuary. It happened the following week, subtle, quiet, almost insignificant to the untrained eye, yet so telling to a creature who lived by instinct. The sacristy behind the altar was usually a place of stillness, soft lamplight, folded vestments, the faint scent of myrrh and old wood. Volunteers moved gently, almost reverently, as they prepared for the service. Alex had stepped in to greet Mrs. Donnelly, the elderly woman who managed the linens. Bolt, as always, stayed by the doorway, or He was supposed to. A sudden rustle of fabric caught his attention. The door to the priest's robing room creaked open, and Father Patrick stepped out, adjusting the white alb beneath his green chasuble. His expression was weary, more so than usual, as though sleep had become something borrowed, not owned. Bolt froze. Then he moved. A deliberate, steady stride directed straight toward the priest. Mrs. Donnelly gasped softly. "Oh dear, he startled me!" But it wasn't a playful approach. Bolt positioned himself in front of Father Patrick, standing tall, blocking his path. His tail was low, his stare unwavering. His nose lifted, inches from the fabric of the priest's vestments, inhaling sharply, as though confirming something he had sensed from afar. "Bolt!" Alex stepped forward, embarrassed. "Buddy, come here!" Bolt didn't budge. Father Patrick laughed gently, though his voice thinned at the edges. "It's all right, Alex. He's just curious." But Alex noticed the subtle tremor again in the priest's right hand, how he hid it quickly in the folds of his sleeve. And he noticed something else, a faint shimmer of powder near the seam of the robe. Barely visible unless the light caught it just right. Bolt saw it, and his body tensed like a wire pulled tight. He gave a single, sharp bark, low, urgent, startling in the confined room. 2 altar servers jumped. Mrs. Donnelly clutched her chest. Alex reached for Bolt's collar, heat rising in his cheeks. "I'm so sorry, Father," he muttered. "He's never like this." Father Patrick forced a smile, though his eyes carried a different story. One of exhaustion, worry, maybe even fear. No harm done, truly. But Bolt refused to leave. He angled his body sideways, shielding the priest as though responding to a threat no one else perceived. Not attacking, guarding. The distinction was subtle and chilling. "Bolt," Alex whispered again, softer this time. Bolt looked up at him, eyes burning with an intensity Alex hadn't seen since their last mission together. It was the look Bolt gave right before uncovering hidden explosives, the look that had saved Alex's life more than once. And yet, in a church filled with warmth and familiarity, Alex dismissed it. He tugged Bolt gently back. The dog resisted, then reluctantly followed. Father Patrick excused himself and stepped past them, his movement quick, almost too quick, as though escaping. The room slowly returned to quiet, but the silence felt wrong now, heavy, pressurized. Mrs. Donnelly shook her head. "Strange dog today." Alex knelt, touching Bolt's chin. "What is it, boy? What are you trying to tell me?" Bolt's only answer was a slow, uneasy exhale, his breath shivering through the dim air. Outside, the church bells began to ring for Mass. Each chime felt sharper than the last. A warning, one no one was ready to hear. The incident in the sacristy stayed with Alex long after the bells faded, and the congregation scattered into the cold afternoon air. Bolt's strange fixation, the faint powder glimmering on the priest's vestments, the tremor in Father Patrick's hands. It all looped through Alex's mind like a film he couldn't stop replaying. But nothing prepared him for what Bolt found next. It was late evening when Alex returned to St. Helena to help lock up after a community event. The sanctuary lights had been dimmed to a warm amber, casting long shadows across the empty pews. Candles flickered before the altar, their flames trembling in the draft that seeped through the old stone walls. Bolt walked beside him, calmer now, but his nose twitched with restless curiosity. "Just a quick sweep," Alex murmured. Old habits died hard. Even in retirement, he checked exits, corners, storage spaces without thinking. As they passed near the side chapel, Bolt suddenly veered off, silent, purposeful. He lowered his head, sniffing along the floor, then toward the trash bin tucked beneath a shelf of hymn books. "Bolt," Alex stepped closer. Bolt nudged the bin with his muzzle. then pawed at it insistently. Alex frowned and pulled the bag free. Inside, among paper towels and wilted flowers, was a small, folded cloth, one of the altar purificators. Except this one carried faint traces of something unusual. A pale dust clung to its fabric, like frost under moonlight. When Alex lifted it, Bolt recoiled slightly, nose wrinkling, breath sharp. That reaction alone made Alex's pulse quicken. He brought the cloth nearer the chapel's reading lamp. Under the light, the powder shimmered faintly, almost crystalline. Not incense, not chalk, not anything harmless. A memory surfaced. Years ago, during a narcotics case. The same subtle sheen. The same chemical scent so faint most people would miss it entirely. "This can't be here," Alex whispered. Bolt pressed against his leg, tail low, gaze fixed on the cloth as though it were something alive, something dangerous. Alex wrapped the cloth inside a spare evidence pouch he kept in his car, out of old habit. He shouldn't have. He knew this wasn't his jurisdiction anymore. But instinct, the same instinct Bolt trusted, told him something was deeply wrong. Someone had handled this cloth recently. Someone had tried to dispose of it quietly, and Bolt had been trying to warn them all along. He glanced toward the dark corridor leading to the sacristy, the place Bolt first sounded the alarm. "Whatever this is," Alex said under his breath, "we're not ignoring it anymore." Bolt gave a low, approving rumble. The first real clue had surfaced, and danger had just begun to take shape. The next morning, the winter sky hung low and gray over the city, a thin veil of mist hugging the sidewalks as Alex drove toward an old contact he hadn't spoken to in nearly a year. He wasn't supposed to be doing this. He wasn't a cop anymore. But ever since Bolt's behavior inside St. Helena, sleep had come in fractured pieces, uneasy, restless, hunted, and the purificator with the crystalline residue had burned in his thoughts all night. Alex parked behind a small forensic lab quietly operated by Ramon Vega, a former crime scene tech known for bending rules but honoring truth. Ramon raised an eyebrow when Alex stepped in with Bolt and a sealed pouch. "You're retired," Ramon said, voice low, suspicious, but amused. "So what trouble is your furry partner dragging you into now?" Alex placed the pouch on the counter. "I just need to know what this is." Ramon slipped on gloves and opened the pouch, lifting the folded cloth beneath the sterile lights. The powder caught the glow, soft, iridescent, deceptive. Bolt sat rigid beside Alex, eyes locked on the cloth. Ramon sniffed gently, then frowned. "This doesn't look good." He scraped a tiny sample into a vial and slid it beneath a portable analyzer. A soft hum filled the room, punctuated by flickering numbers on the small screen. Seconds stretched. Bolt's ears twitched with each electronic beep. Alex's jaw clenched. Then Ramon exhaled sharply. "Alex, do you know where you got this?" Alex didn't answer. Ramon rotated the screen toward him. "This is trace residue from a synthesized psychoactive compound. Highly controlled. Hard to detect. Used in extortion cases, sometimes to induce compliance or confusion in targets. In larger doses, it's toxic." A cold wave surged through Alex's chest. "It shouldn't be anywhere near a church," Ramon added quietly. Alex ran a hand through his hair. "Could it transfer through fabric, be hidden in small amounts?" "Easily." "And the person carrying it might not even know how much they're absorbing over time." Absorbing. The word hit like a blow. Father Patrick's trembling hands, his exhaustion, his distant, clouded eyes. Bolt had sensed it before anyone else. Ramon leaned closer. "Alex, if someone in that church is being exposed to this stuff, intentionally or not, you need to act fast. It could already be affecting their body, their judgment." Bolt whimpered softly, nudging Alex's leg. urging him to understand the truth he had been barking for weeks. Alex swallowed hard. The sanctuary he thought was safe wasn't. Someone brought this chemical inside St. Helena. Someone was using it. And Father Patrick, gentle, trusted Father Patrick, might already be its victim. Alex squared his shoulders, a fire kindling behind his eyes. Then Bolt and I start digging. The truth was no longer a suspicion. It had a name, a scent, a danger they could no longer ignore. Snow fell softly over St. Helena that afternoon, blanketing the church courtyard in white. The world looked peaceful, too peaceful, given the storm brewing beneath its stone walls. Alex returned quietly, Bolt trotting at his side, both of them tuned to a tension only they seemed able to sense. He didn't expect anyone to be there, but as he stepped inside the dim sanctuary, he heard a voice call softly, "Mr. Carter?" A young man, Daniel O'Reilly, one of the parish volunteers, stood near the confessional booth, wringing a knitted hat between nervous fingers. His eyes darted between Alex and Bolt, as though he wasn't sure which one he trusted more. "Do you have a moment?" Daniel asked. Alex nodded. Bolt settled beside him, ears tilted forward. Daniel exhaled shakily. "I wasn't going to say anything. I didn't want to start rumors. But after what happened the other day with your dog in the sacristy..." His voice trailed off as Bolt's gaze fixed gently but intently on him. "Maybe it's time." Alex stepped closer. The air inside the sanctuary was cold enough to sting, but Daniel's words carried a heat of urgency. "It started months ago," Daniel whispered. "Father Patrick, he changed. At first I thought it was stress. But then..." He glanced toward the confessional as if fearing it might hear him. "One evening, I stayed late to finish cleaning. I heard shouting coming from inside that booth." His voice trembled. "Father Patrick, and another man. I didn't see him, but the voice was rough, angry. He kept saying, 'You owe me, and you don't get to walk away.'" Alex's pulse quickened. Bolt shifted his weight, sensing the rise in tension. Daniel swallowed. "And Father..." He sounded terrified. "I've never heard him speak like that." Alex exchanged a look with Bolt, a silent, shared recognition. Fear, coercion, threat. Everything began aligning with what they had found. Daniel continued, lowering his voice further. "After that night, Father Patrick became distant, forgetful. His hands shook during Mass, and his vestments. I've seen spots of dust on them, strange colors. I cleaned one of his robes once and felt lightheaded for hours." Alex's jaw clenched. The dots were no longer dots. They were a map. Daniel's voice cracked. "Mr. Carter, I think someone is forcing him into something bad. And he's too afraid to ask for help." Bolt nudged Daniel gently, as if comforting him. But his tail remained still, his body tense, his instincts sharpening to a knife's edge. Alex placed a steady hand on Daniel's shoulder. "You did the right thing. But listen to me carefully. Don't mention this to anyone else yet." Daniel nodded quickly. Relief and fear tangled in his expression. As he slipped out of the sanctuary, Alex looked down at Bolt. "What do you think, partner?" Bolt didn't bark. He simply stared toward the confessional, lips pulled tight, breath slow and controlled, the way he always did when danger wasn't just near, but already inside the room. The following Sunday dawned with a strange stillness, the kind that settles before a storm. Frost clung to the stained glass windows of St. Helena, dimming the morning light into muted colors. Alex arrived early with Bolt, hoping to observe quietly, hoping, maybe foolishly, that everything would feel normal again. It didn't. Even before they entered, Bolt halted on the front steps. His nose lifted. His chest expanded with a deep, searching inhale. Then another. A quiet growl rippled through him, so low it vibrated through Alex's fingertips on the leash. Inside, the sanctuary hummed with soft chatter as parishioners filled the pews. But something felt off. The air carried a faint metallic tang beneath the incense, barely noticeable to humans. Yet Bolt reacted instantly. His ears pinned forward, his stance tightened. Father Patrick stepped from the sacristy at that moment, dressed in his green vestments. The congregation smiled warmly, unaware of the shadows beneath his eyes. He moved slower than usual, each step measured, as though pushing through invisible weight. When he reached the altar, his hand brushed subtly against the pocket sewn into the side of his chasuble, where the fabric bulged slightly, unnaturally. Bolt saw it, and the dog's entire body locked. Alex followed Bolt's gaze, and his stomach dropped. Throughout the opening hymn, Bolt refused to settle. He sat tall, trembling with controlled tension. His amber eyes never left the priest. Each time Father Patrick raised his arms, Bolt leaned forward, nostrils flaring, reading the air the way only a trained canine could. Then came the moment Alex would replay endlessly in the hours to come. As Father Patrick lifted the chalice during the preparation of the gifts, his sleeve slipped back, revealing a faint dusting of crystalline residue along his wrist. The same residue from the purificator. Alex inhaled sharply. Bolt rose to his feet, fur bristling, a low bark building in his throat. Several parishioners turned, whispering, "Why is the dog doing that? Is he sick?" "No, look, he's staring at Father." Alex placed a calming hand on Bolt's harness. But Bolt didn't break focus. His breathing deepened. His paws pressed into the floor with intent. Something in him had crossed a threshold. This was no longer suspicion. This was recognition. And then, just as Father Patrick moved to step down from the altar, his leg buckled. Gasps filled the sanctuary. The chalice shook in his hand. His other hand clutched at his robe near the pocket, where the bulge beneath the fabric shifted, as if something inside had moved. Bolt lurched forward with a sharp, urgent bark. Not of aggression, but of warning. A warning the entire church finally heard. Alex's heart thundered. He knew, instinctively, painfully, that whatever Bolt had sensed for weeks was now moments from breaking open. The sanctuary held its breath. Father Patrick wavered again at the foot of the altar, one hand gripping the lectern for balance. His chest rose and fell too quickly. His complexion turned a ghostly shade of gray beneath the soft candlelight. Murmurs rippled through the pews like uneasy waves. And Bolt could no longer wait. With a sudden, explosive surge of instinct, he tore forward. The leash slipped through Alex's hands before he could react. Paws thundered against the marble aisle, echoing like drumbeats through the stunned silence. "Bolt, stop!" Alex shouted, but the dog was already moving with the precision of a trained operative. Not toward the priest's hands, not toward his face, but toward the side pocket of the chasuble, the bulge of fabric he had been tracking for weeks. Father Patrick staggered backward, eyes widening in terror as Bolt lunged, not to attack, but to intercept. The priest's foot slid on the polished floor. His hand jerked reflexively toward the pocket, as though to protect whatever lay hidden inside. That motion sealed it. Bolt leapt upward, teeth gripping not flesh, but the edge of the vestment pocket. The fabric tore with a sharp, ripping sound. A small metallic device, no larger than a deck of cards, dropped to the marble floor and clattered violently, spinning like a coin before settling. Gasps erupted. A woman screamed. Children cried out. An elderly man crossed himself rapidly. Alex froze mid-step, eyes widening at the sight. The device was unmistakable. A dispersal module, portable, concealable, designed to release airborne compounds, the same kind found on the purificator. Father Patrick stared at it with horror. his lips trembling. "No, no, please, don't." Parishioners recoiled from the altar, stumbling over pews, pushing back in panic as whispers turned to shouts. "What is that? Is it dangerous?" "Father Patrick, what have you been carrying?" The priest collapsed to his knees, hands shaking violently, eyes brimming with tears. Bolt stood protectively between him and the device, barking in sharp, urgent bursts meant to keep everyone away. Alex rushed forward, sliding to his knees beside Bolt. "Easy, buddy. Good job. Easy." But Father Patrick's voice broke in a raw, devastated whisper. "I didn't want this. They made me carry it. I was being watched, threatened. I tried to make it stop." The congregation fell into stunned silence. Bolt looked at Alex, ears back, chest heaving, as if to say, "This is what I tried to tell you. This is the danger you couldn't see." And for the first time, the truth in his eyes was undeniable. Panic rippled through the sanctuary like a living force. The choir scrambled backward. Parents shielded their children. A few parishioners pressed themselves against the walls, unable to tear their eyes away from the small metal device glinting on the marble floor. Bolt stood rigid in front of it, his body low, tail stiff, ears pinned, every muscle engaged in the posture of a dog facing a threat he knew was real and immediate. Alex moved fast. "Everyone back!" he shouted, voice echoing against the high arches. "Do not touch that device!" Several people froze mid-step. Others stumbled away in terror. Father Patrick remained on his knees, trembling, his hands gripping the edge of the altar cloth. I'm so sorry." His voice broke into a sob. Alex approached cautiously, one hand extended toward Bolt's harness. "Easy, boy. Let me see it." Bolt didn't take his eyes off the device. He issued one sharp bark, warning, command, urgency, forcing Alex to slow down. Alex understood. Bolt wasn't telling him to stop. He was telling him, "Someone else is here." And then the doors at the back of the church slammed open. A tall man in a dark coat stepped inside, his silhouette framed by the harsh winter light pouring through the threshold. His face was shadowed, but his voice carried clearly. "Father Patrick." "You dropped something." The priest flinched. Bolt's growl deepened, reverberating off the marble floor. Alex stepped between the stranger and the altar. "Who are you?" The man ignored him, taking another step forward. "Father," he said with dangerous calm, "we had an agreement." The congregation murmured in confusion as realization dawned in Alex's mind. This was the voice Daniel had heard, the one from the confessional, the man who had threatened the priest. Alex's heart pounded. "Bolt," he whispered. "On me." Bolt shifted position, flanking Alex, muscles coiled like springs. His eyes locked onto the intruder with fierce, unwavering focus. The stranger reached inside his coat. Bolt exploded into motion. A blur of fur and force, he launched himself halfway down the aisle, barking with such ferocity the stained glass seemed to vibrate. The stranger recoiled, stumbling backward. Alex seized the moment, grabbing the dispersal device with a gloved hand and tucking it into a locked offering, safe behind the altar. Bolt continued advancing in controlled bursts, driving the intruder toward the exit. The man cursed, turning sharply on his heel as Bolt lunged again. He fled through the open doors, disappearing into the icy daylight. Bolt skidded to a stop at the threshold, refusing to chase beyond the church grounds. He turned back to Alex, chest heaving, eyes blazing with instinct and certainty. Danger was not over. But the sanctuary had been saved. For now. Bolt's warning barks still echoed through the church as Alex sprinted past the pews and out into the winter air. The intruder was already halfway across the courtyard, boots crunching through snow, breath rising in frantic bursts. He glanced back, panic flashing in his eyes. Alex didn't hesitate. "Bolt! With me!" Bolt launched forward, staying just ahead of Alex, moving with the precision of a canine who had never forgotten a single day of training. His paws kicked up snow like sparks as he closed the distance. The man reached the parking lot, fumbling for something at his waist. A weapon, a tool, maybe a trigger. But Bolt was faster. A deep, resonant snarl tore from the dog's throat as he lunged, clamping onto the man's coat sleeve and yanking him violently sideways. The stranger crashed into the frozen ground with a grunt of shock. Alex reached them seconds later, pinning the man's wrist to the pavement. "Don't move, it's over!" The intruder thrashed under Alex's grip, spitting curses that dissolved into the icy wind. "You don't understand," he hissed. "That priest owed more than prayers. He should have stayed obedient." Bolt's growl deepened. Not a sound of anger, but one of absolute refusal. A vow. Sirens wailed in the distance. Parishioners had already called 911. Within minutes, cruisers skidded into the lot. Officers cuffed the intruder, pulling him to his feet as he glared daggers at Alex and Bolt. "You ruined everything," the man snarled. "No," Alex said quietly, placing a steadying hand on Bolt's back. "He stopped you." Bolt's tail didn't wag. His focus remained razor-sharp, scanning the scene, watching every movement, ensuring the threat was truly over. But inside the church, another crisis waited. Father Patrick had collapsed soon after the intruder fled. By the time Alex and Bolt re-entered the sanctuary, paramedics were already lifting the priest onto a stretcher. His skin was pale, lips trembling, sweat dampening his hair. "Is he going to be okay?" Alex asked, breath still ragged. A paramedic shook his head. "There's a toxin in his system. Long-term exposure. We need him at the hospital immediately." Father Patrick's eyes fluttered, barely opening. Bolt stepped closer, his nose brushing the priest's hand with a soft, anxious whine. "Bolt," Father Patrick whispered, voice fragile and broken. He knew. Before I did." Alex swallowed hard. The ambulance doors closed. Sirens wailed again, this time carrying not danger, but hope. Bolt stood motionless in the snow, watching the flashing lights disappear down the street. For the first time that day, his body softened. His tail brushed Alex's leg gently, as if seeking reassurance. Alex knelt, wrapping an arm around the dog's neck. "You did it," he whispered. "You saved him." But Bolt's eyes lingered on the road, still alert, still listening, because heroes don't rest. Not until the whole truth is finally free. The hospital smelled of antiseptic and winter air. Snow clung to Alex's boots as he and Bolt walked through the sliding doors, greeted by fluorescent lights that hummed softly above them. Nurses cast curious glances at Bolt, this older dog with a silver muzzle and determined stride. But no one stopped them. Something about Bolt's presence felt purposeful, necessary. Father Patrick had been admitted to the emergency wing. Alex waited outside the glass partition while doctors moved swiftly around the priest's bed, attaching IV lines and monitors. Bolt pressed his nose to the lower edge of the glass, tail still. Breath fogging the surface. Hours passed. Eventually, a doctor stepped out, removing his mask. His expression was serious, but softened with empathy. "He's stable," he said. "The toxin in his system has been building up for months. Small doses, regularly. Enough to impair memory, cause tremors, induce confusion. But he's fighting it." Alex let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. Bolt leaned into him, sensing the shift in tension. "But the slow recovery," the doctor continued, "will depend on reducing exposure entirely. Whoever has been dosing him, they knew exactly what they were doing." Alex nodded grimly. "He'll never be near it again, I promise." The doctor hesitated. He asked to see you both when he wakes." When Father Patrick finally stirred, the room was dim, lit only by a small lamp casting a soft, amber halo around the bed. His eyes fluttered open, unfocused at first, then clearing as he spotted Alex and Bolt standing quietly in the doorway. "Come in," he whispered, voice fragile but warm. Bolt walked forward first, each step gentle, almost reverent. He rested his head on the mattress beside the priest's hand. Father Patrick's fingers trembled as they brushed the dog's fur. "You saved me," he murmured. "Saints preserve us." "You knew what I didn't." Tears gathered at the corners of his eyes. His voice cracked. "I thought I could handle it alone. The threats, the blackmail. They told me they'd ruin the parish, expose things that weren't true, hurt people I loved. I was ashamed, afraid." Alex sat down beside the bed. "You weren't weak. You were targeted." Father Patrick closed his eyes briefly, steadying himself. "But Bolt saw through everything. He wouldn't let me hide." Alex smiled softly. "He's got a gift for that." Just then, the door opened. Parishioners, Mrs. Donnelly, Daniel, the choir director, even children from the Sunday school, stood in the hallway, holding candles. Their faces were pale with worry, but their eyes glowed with relief. "We heard he was awake," Daniel said. "We've been praying." One by one, they stepped into the room, filling it with quiet warmth. Some knelt. Some stood in silence. All of them watched Bolt with newfound reverence, as though realizing the dog had been fighting for them all along. Father Patrick looked around, tears slipping freely now. "I'm so sorry for hiding the truth, for putting you in danger." Mrs. Donnelly shook her head gently. "You were protecting us." "And Bolt protected you." Bolt lifted his head, ears twitching. Not proud, not boastful, just present. In that soft circle of light, amidst tired faces and whispered prayers, healing began. Not just for Father Patrick, but for the whole parish. Fear loosened its grip. Truth breathed again. And at the center of it all was a dog whose heart never stopped listening. 1 month later, winter was beginning to loosen its grip on St. Helena. The snow still rested on rooftops, but the sun lingered longer each afternoon, spreading a gentle warmth across the church courtyard. Children played again near the steps. Laughter returned. Life moved, slowly, carefully, but undeniably forward. And Father Patrick, he was healing. Alex and Bolt walked up the familiar path toward the parish hall. Bolt's gait was steady, his silver-streaked fur glowing in the soft morning light. A few parishioners paused in their conversations, smiling warmly at the sight of him. "There he is," someone whispered, "the guardian angel with paws." Bolt's ears perked, but he stayed humbly close to Alex's side, as if the praise belonged to someone else. Inside the hall, Father Patrick sat beside a table of donation boxes, sorting through envelopes with a steady hand. No more tremors, no more fog in his eyes. When he looked up and saw Alex and Bolt, his face lit with a peaceful, grateful smile. "Good morning, my friends," he said. Bolt trotted forward, pressing his forehead gently into the priest's knee. Father Patrick chuckled softly and scratched behind his ears. "My strength returns a little more each day," the priest said. "I owe that to you both and to the grace that worked through this brave creature." Alex nodded, but his eyes lingered on the single thin scar on Father Patrick's wrist, faded but still visible, a reminder of how close they came to losing him. "You protected your flock," Alex said quietly. "You endured more than most could." A few minutes later, the church doors opened again, and a small crowd of parishioners filtered into the hall. Mrs. Donnelly approached with a tray of warm muffins. Daniel carried a stack of hymnals. Children followed behind them, giggling as they held handmade signs. Alex raised an eyebrow. "What's all this?" Father Patrick chuckled, slightly embarrassed. They insisted on holding a small gathering today. Not for me, mind you. The children rushed forward and placed the signs on the table. Each one was decorated with paw prints, painted in bright colors, and large letters. Bolt, our guardian. Bolt blinked at the artwork, head tilting in innocent confusion. The hall erupted in gentle laughter. Mrs. Donnelly stepped close. He didn't just protect Father Patrick. He protected all of us, Daniel nodded. If that device had gone off during Mass, we don't know what could have happened. The room grew quiet. A shared understanding flowed through the crowd. Gratitude, humility, awe. Father Patrick rose slowly from his chair, placing a hand on Bolt's back. This dog, he said softly, carried a light into darkness when I could not. God speaks in many ways, sometimes in whispers, sometimes in storms, and sometimes through a faithful heart with 4 paws. Bolt wagged his tail gently, as if acknowledging the truth without needing to understand its weight. Outside the hall, the bells of St. Helena chimed, clear, bright, alive. People stepped forward one by one to pet Bolt, to thank him, to honor him, not as a hero in uniform, but as a guardian whose courage came from instinct, love, and something deeper no human language could fully express. As Alex watched Bolt bask in the quiet affection of the community, he felt a warm pressure in his chest. Gratitude, pride, peace. Bolt glanced back at him with soft, amber eyes, tail swaying like a slow heartbeat. In that moment, Alex realized something profound. Healing had come not only to Father Patrick, not only to St. Helena, but to him as well. And all because one dog refused to stay silent. In the end, it wasn't sharp instincts or heroic training alone that saved a life. It was something quieter, something deeper. A bond forged in loyalty, courage, and the silent language only a dog's heart truly speaks. Bolt didn't seek medals. He didn't ask for praise. He simply followed the truth when everyone else was too afraid or too blinded by trust to see it. And perhaps that is the greatest kind of bravery, the courage to act when no one understands you yet, the strength to protect those who never even knew they were in danger. At St. Helena, people still talk about that winter, not with fear, but with gratitude, because a dog with silvered fur and unwavering devotion reminded them that heroes don't always stand on 2 legs. Sometimes, the truest protectors walk beside us quietly, leaving paw prints not on the floor of a church, but on the heart of a community forever changed. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, because every paw print has a story, and some stories deserve to be heard.